Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Radkowsky, and I work as a psychologist with gay-and-straight individuals and couples in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So in this video, we're going to talk about dealing with the pressure to couple. My colleague and friend Lisa Klein, who's a physical therapist, and I were watching, and just like that, the sequel to Sex and the City. And we were stunned at how much it pushed the idea that the only way to have a valuable life is to be in a relationship. Well, there are a lot of people who aren't in a relationship. How do you find a way to have a fulfilled and meaningful life, even if you're single? That's what this video is about. I hope you'll enjoy it. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.
Hi, and welcome to yet another edition of Lisa and Michael talking about things that entertain us, otherwise known as Sex and the City. Discuss.
And just like that.
Exactly. Oh, that's right. And just like that. Right.
Speaking of Sex and the City, I love your hat, which your
Thank
sparkly
you.
hat
It's
is.
my homage to Sex. Plus, it's cold today, so yeah.
Yes,
and I
it's
haven't
very
done my
Sex and the
roots, so
City.
there's that too. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
So Michael and I, or Dr. Michael Radkowsky, who is a very well-known couples therapist in Washington, D.C.
An individual therapist.
An individual therapist. We were talking about how we felt about the, and just like that, the new Sex and the City season. And we have opinions. So Michael, you want to start us off?
I will start by saying that I really groaned out loud in the final scene of the last episode where Carrie kisses her new handsome producer, because I thought, here we go, that the message is that there's a happy ending when you're with someone. And it was not only Carrie, but there was also her wonderful friend Seema, who after a long period of not having anyone in her life is very happily ensconced in the bed of her new nightclub owning friend. And of course, Miranda's jetting off to Los Angeles with Che.
Yeah.
And if Charlotte's
we should
always
just all
married.
learn to be celibate. Is that what's happening? Is that what you're advocating?
No, I'm not advocating that. I'm just advocating. I may sound a little extreme. I've been told that this view is a little extreme.
Yeah.
But I'm suggesting that we at least think how this notion that happiness is when you're with someone permeates our culture, which makes us feel like we have to have someone or our lives are less worthy, I think. Or it can lead us to think that. It's hard not to think that. And that means that if you're not with someone, it's very easy to feel less than, or your life's not successful because you're not meeting the standard that's espoused for what happiness really means.
Well, actually, it's funny. You're making me think of what I just saw online. This was today. So Simone Biles, do you know who she is? She's considered to be the greatest of all time gymnast, female gymnast. She's highly decorated. She was in the Olympics. I'm pretty sure she was in the Olympics. I mean, the woman has an extraordinary career. She's won all kinds of medals, and she just got engaged, which is great. But she said that I think I'm getting this right, her engagement ring is her most prized possession. I was like, what? You are a highly decorated Olympian, like you are the GOAT athlete, and your engagement ring is your I mean, dude, really?
Well, I can see it both ways, right? That
so getting
it's a
engaged
wonderful thing.
is a more of an achievement than winning multiple Olympic gold medals and being like the greatest of all time gymnast.
When you put it that way, I totally get your point. But you could say that finding someone you really love and are looking forward to spend the rest of your life with, you hope, is a great achievement. But I totally get your point. But
That's
if she's saying,
happening. She's just engaged, Michael. It's not like they've been married for 50 years. They're not even married yet.
Yeah, I totally get your point.
There's no guarantee they're going to make it down the aisle. I mean, there's no guarantee that's going to last.
Yeah, you're right. I got engaged. Look at the ring. Yeah, I get it.
Which I'm saying, I mean, it is. I'm not trying to diminish that as a thing. I'm not. But I was struck by the way that the language was, that was her most prized possession.
Yeah.
And not like the hours and the training and her talent. And so I don't know. So apropos this conversation, like, you want to start with Miranda?
Sure. What do you want to say about her now?
Well, just because I feel like they had her go off with Che, like she's coming out of a marriage that she wasn't happy in for years potentially.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I could see why, but Carrie was happy with Big, as far as we know. And
Yeah.
then he had been dead for like a year or so, not that long, but
Right.
still, so she
Mhm.
shouldn't have to be alone. But then she like makes out with her producer. Isn't that, how's that good for workplace? Aren't you not supposed to do that in the workplace?
Kind of messy. I guess it's the start of a next season. But speaking of Miranda, you're right. Where's the time spent figuring herself out, figuring out what it means just to be, I'm not in love with the word happy because who's happy all the time, but content, fulfilled, many moments of happiness over time you can hope for. But where's the time spent figuring out what it means just to be Miranda, as opposed to defining myself as partner of, and that's what I need to make me feel fulfilled. This guy's not doing it for me anymore. But Che will. Right?
Hard to say. I mean, I don't know how many years Miranda wasn't happy with Steve. It could be 10. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but she realizes it. I'm making up a lot of hypotheses here. She's realizing it in the context of meeting someone new who's turning her on, providing all of these thrills. And until then, there she was in her marriage, every night having berries and chia seeds while they watch TV. I'm a big fan of chia seeds, by the way.
I know, I'm aware.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so I'm not criticizing her for that. But where's the time spent figuring out what it means for her to build a fulfilled, meaningful life, not only in relation to someone else? There it is again. There's that theme that it's someone else being in your life that is the recipe for contentment.
So do you
Am
feel
I
like,
overstating that, do you think?
well, I guess in the case of Miranda, she went from the marriage, she just went right, boom, for one for the other. Is
Mhm.
that healthy? Aren't you supposed to take some time? Like she's not even mourning the death of her marriage to Steve
Yeah.
at all. She's just
No.
blooping right into the next situation, which I don't think that's healthy.
No, because I'm sure it covers up any mourning or sadness or anything that she might have to do with it's like, great, I have a new exciting chapter ahead.
Well, especially when she leaves her husband and then Che makes this decision on their own,
Mm-hmm.
go to LA. They didn't consult Miranda. And they tell Miranda, not privately, that they're moving
Mm-hmm.
across the country, but at like a whole event with all these other people.
Yeah. What are you saying that says about
I say that's
Che?
horrible. I say that that's pretty, like, that doesn't really, if you're involved with someone
Mm-hmm.
and they're leaving their marriage for you, essentially, don't you owe them the courtesy to tell them privately that you're moving across the country
It would be thoughtful.
and not in front of all of, it's just, the whole thing was just outrageous.
In any case,
Okay.
I totally agree with your point that you need look, the stronger you are, the better you are in a relationship. That's not the only reason to be strong for yourself. It's worth being strong for yourself that you can have a fine life if you're on your own, you're not with someone, but you also make a better partner if you don't need someone to be there for your happiness. I would
Right.
put
So
that whole thing in air quotes, as
right. So
I think Miranda does.
right. So I guess with Carrie, my question would be, why didn't she end up with a teacher? Because they seem to get along. Because she did that thing on the bridge with Big's ashes, which was really touching. P.S. And by the way, I don't think you're supposed to put ashes in a river like that. I think, isn't it like a biohazard?
Also, what about
I
all
don't think
the
that's legal.
breathing it in? That
Ugh.
seems kind of
Ugh. Anyway, but it
morbid.
was very poignant. I was definitely teared up. It was a very poignant scene. And so she does this process. She does the ashes. She kind of, in a way, closes that chapter. And then she's making out with her producer in the elevator. I don't know.
What's your question?
I guess my question is, why didn't she go with the teacher? Who she kind of, I mean, he was cute. She got along with him, but he was just not flashy enough for her.
Maybe she wasn't ready yet, but I agree with you. He seemed like a very nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why she would have called him up when she's back from Paris and said, okay, I'm finally ready, but I guess he just didn't do it for her. But
Like
come
she
to
always
think
has
of
to
it,
go for like the difficult guy. What?
That's her history, isn't it?
Yeah.
I saw the rest of the series about 20 years ago, but I still kind of remember it. There was that guy, Aiden. He seemed very solid, very nice. Didn't she
Yeah.
have an affair with Big on him and ruin the
Yes.
whole thing? I remember him yelling at her, "You broke my heart." So
Yeah.
I guess she isn't, that's the direction she likes doing, is not the easy route.
I mean, that's okay if that's her thing, but it's like, yeah, I guess
Not just
apropos the,
easy, not the like dependable, solid guy that she chased
yeah,
after Baryshnikov, not his name on the show, to Paris. Yeah,
yeah, Alexander Petrovsky.
yeah.
So, I don't know. So the point that you're making is that they had to tie up the series or the season with everybody with someone. And the question that you have is why? Why didn't they just leave it? But I guess like for Seema, I mean, Seema has a whole, she hasn't been married. She's of a certain age, you know, she has her whole career. So maybe she's entitled to have
Yeah,
happiness
absolutely. She
finally.
seems lovely, right? I really, really like her. She seems like a
Yeah,
really solid, wonderful person, caring, big heart, funny, stands well on her own. Clearly, she's made a really nice career for herself.
right.
And look, it's a television show. So, you know, but meaning like they do what they do, it's entertaining. But I wish there were some more role models in the media of people who can have really fulfilled lives and without it having to be that they wind up with somebody. Although I'm happy whenever everyone ends up with someone, great, but it doesn't always happen. So for the people in real life for whom it doesn't happen, it would be lovely to have some other role models out there. That's
I
what I
think what
think.
you, yeah, what you and I are talking about is how society has so much pressure on people being in relationships. And so, but relationships can look different to many people, and not everybody really wants to be. Look at what's his name? Nick Cannon. He's got his 8th kid, or maybe his 9th kid on the way. Mariah Carey's ex-husband.
Hmm.
And he's saying monogamy is like not a thing. So it's like, well, clearly
Mm.
you've got like 8 kids with how many different women? So, you know, if that's what works for you,
Yeah. So how is he helping to be there day after day raising all of his 8 children? I wonder.
I'm not privy to the inner workings of his life per
Mhm.
se, but yeah, but the comment that I saw was that he's like not so into monogamy.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Well, that's a whole other discussion, which I think we're going to have soon, one of these days,
yes,
right, about
yes,
monogamy. But
sure.
be my guest. If you don't want to believe in monogamy, don't believe in monogamy. I'm just wondering how solid and present a parent could you be if you have 8 children with 8 different women or fewer than 8
Well, he
different
has
women?
twins with Mariah Carey. So, and then he has, I
Ah,
think, I don't know how many, I don't know if he has 8 kids in total or he's having his 8th kid. I don't know.
as a parent, I sound like a know-it-all. I
Yeah,
just think it's a good thing to have a lot of FaceTime with your child. And I don't mean
right,
FaceTime on the phone. I mean like you're present with them. So
right. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think it's good for the kid.
right.
We'll talk more about monogamy in another
Yeah,
conversation, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So is there, what else would we like to talk about how the whole thing with being single versus not, you know, being coupled and all that?
Well, what do you think it's like for, I know there's no one answer to this. There's probably 1,000, a million answers, but what's it like for people who are in a relationship to see this show after show, movie after movie, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I
The
can tell
happy
you as
ending.
someone who is not currently in a relationship, it's there's a, you don't realize how much of, there's so much pressure. And I read this one article that was great. It was like, you know, they do all these polls and stuff like that. And they were saying, you know, oh, single people are happier, married people are happy, you know, who's happier?
Mhm.
And, and it was this whole thing about all the things you get to do when you're single. And then something else came out actually, which was, I think for women, it was like women who chose not to marry. Oh, then there was the Victorian one that came out, which was very funny
I love
about
that
like,
one.
that was hysterical about all the women who were just like, forget it, you know?
Tell our
Um,
viewers, the thousands of them, or perhaps millions, give them a little synopsis of that great article.
there was somebody did a review of some newspaper, and one of the newspaper articles was Victorian women writing in who were not married or who had chosen not to be married or have kids, and the reasons, and they were hilarious. These women were so funny,
They
just
had so
like
much awareness, right?
they
Yeah.
did. So I feel like, and I've certainly met women who are just like, no thanks.
Hmm.
And I have some of my like I know people who we're like, okay, no, I'm good. And I think, again, there's no one answer. It's whatever works for you and how you prefer to be. But I think the one thing I was talking about earlier was all the things you can do when you're single. Like, you can do whatever you want. You know, there's a tremendous amount of freedom. And, you know, I'm in a book club. I run a supper club. I've got all this stuff going on. I'm super busy. I have my business. And it's interesting.
You do have a super fantastic life.
I kind of have an interesting life. And I'm in this business group with, there are 8 of us. And I was thinking about this the other day. It's 4 men and 4 women. We all own our own businesses. And the 4 men are all married. And the one who's not married is in a serious relationship. And of the 4 women, only 1 woman's married. The 3 of us are single.
My gosh. What do you make of that? That
I was
seems
thinking
really
about what I made
fascinating.
of that. It is kind of fascinating, right?
Yeah.
I think because when you have a business, the business becomes your baby and your husband and everything, because it's a lot of work to have a business.
Then how do the men pull it off?
Well, Michael, that is a very good
I know
question.
there's some really good answers here.
Yeah, because they have a wife. That's why.
Yep.
Who's
Yep.
doing the cooking and the cleaning and taking care of the kids? They have wives.
Yeah.
They
There's
have
that whole
wives.
gender issue, right?
They have
Gender
wives.
inequality. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
And I think I'm trying to think if all the wives work. I think that they do work, but I don't think it's comparable to the husband potentially in terms of how much they work. And I'm not judging. Like, there's no judgment going on here. It's just like watching the thing.
Well,
So yeah, it's like if I had a wife, can you imagine how much bigger my business could be?
I hear this over and over again from heterosexual couples I work with, that the women carry, I think, what's called the emotional load. They tell me, right, that they just are responsible for thinking of all the details and filling in the holes when things are going to come apart, much more usually than their husbands. So I think that the woman typically will fall into the role of helping her husband, who's busy with his business, out and keeping things going, even if she has a busy career. You know, she'll still have to make time, have to, I'll put that in quotes, but it's again reinforced, I suppose, by our culture and thousands of years of mores being passed down, altered a little bit, but maybe not that much.
Can we blame the patriarchy for this, Michael?
I think we can.
I personally blame the patriarchy for convincing us that the women had to do all the work.
Well, now you
We're
raise
out
such a
doing
great
God
point.
knows what. What?
You just raised great point after great point. I don't like to blame. Blaming is kind of a waste of time because it doesn't get you anywhere except feeling like a victim. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's good to blame. Sometimes it's even, kind of fun to feel like a victim or soothing, but it doesn't get you very far.
I'm not blaming or victimizing. I'm just saying that there's a construct that's been set up that is very pro-man.
Yes.
And it's not pro-women. And it's like, who's actually having the babies? It's the women. Like, you guys have convinced us that we're your slaves. Meanwhile, we're doing all the work.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
It is. Our world is really messed up.
It
I
really
agree
is.
with you. I totally agree with you.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a very somber point. Well, but it's very interesting.
Yeah,
I wonder if I should talk about my own marriage, which of course we don't have the issue of male, female, and the woman doing more of the work. We split it up, I hope, fairly equitably.
Yeah, I think you guys are good. Yeah.
I think we strive to have an attitude of generosity. But maybe because we don't have that construct of the male female, we fall into it less. Maybe it's hard to resist falling into it. Do you think?
I think that we have so much pressure by society, i.e. 2000 years of patriarchal brainwashing, that basically the woman runs the house, and if she's working, she's also working and running the house.
Yeah.
And the men really need to step up and learn about what it really takes to, it's funny because I meet a lot of men who say they want independent women. They don't want an independent woman. They say that. They want a smart woman,
Hmm.
but they don't necessarily
But
want an independent woman.
meaning they want someone who's going to take care of everything in the background?
Oh
Or
yeah,
what?
yeah. They still want to be taken care of like little babies.
Mm,
No offense, but they want a woman who's capable of doing that.
yeah.
It's like, well, what if the woman actually has a business she's running and doesn't want to take care of you? What if maybe the woman needs to kind of be taken care of also?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, this is a whole conversation about evolution of gender roles and women and men in general. So
Or what if you do take responsibility for taking care of yourself for the most part? I'm not talking to you, Lisa. I'm talking to the hypothetical guy who wants to take care of him, right?
well,
Take
that's
care
what
of
I'm saying.
yourself.
I think that we have to undo hundreds, if not thousands of years of conditioning
Hmm. Yeah.
that has taken place.
Yeah. And it can be so subtle, right? Just the assumption you'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Right. Just that assumptions can be so subtle and deeply ingrained that people probably don't even notice it a lot of the time. Now, you started to talk about your group. Was this the point you wanted to make about how all the men have wives and the women are single?
I was just struck by the difference and how it was very interesting just
Yeah.
to take note and just to wonder. I wonder if more women who own their own businesses, are they married? Are they not married? Is it hard for them to be in relationships? Like I don't know the statistics on that, but it would be kind of interesting to see. Because I don't really feel like you have to necessarily give up one to have the other. Like, why couldn't you have a relationship and a business?
I hope
You know?
so. Yeah. Do you think it's possible that women who are married um, might have, this is a gross generalization, but they might have less energy to put into their businesses? Like part of being single gives you the time and energy to put into your business?
I mean, I can't say that we'd have to talk to a lot of people and see, but I would say that it's hard to have energy to do many things at the same time. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg situation or causative. I don't know in terms of why it seems like the women who are my group are single more and
Mhm.
the guys are married. I don't know. It'd be kind of an interesting thing to explore and research and see if somebody's done some studies on that actually.
Yeah. Then there's this whole issue about, I think you pretty much said this already, right? But men not liking, this is again a gross generalization, but strong women, right? Who might be smarter than they are, more successful than they are monetarily. That's my response.
That was
It's
like
so limiting. Yeah. No, we started by, you said we're going off topic, but I feel we're not, because we're talking all about gender roles and what's expected and what we're supposed to do and what constitutes supposedly real happiness
right.
and all of that.
Well, let's circle back. Like Carrie, she has enough money now. I mean, Big, I'm sure, was very wealthy. So she doesn't need a man for financial security.
Right.
So I think she just maybe wants the companionship. And
Yeah.
then you're looking at Charlotte, who totally married for financial security, although she had some money from Trey. I mean, she's not buying, Oscar de la Renta dresses for her daughters from her own salary because she doesn't work. So those are expensive. So yeah, she's with Harry for a number of reasons. I'm sure also they have a good relationship, which is fantastic.
They seem
And
to,
now,
but was the money a big part of her decision to be with him? I don't remember that.
I don't think so because she had money. It was to be to Trey when she was married to the doctor. I think she was not for the money, but he had them.
Mhm.
And then she marries her divorce lawyer, even though, for love, but also he obviously has a lot of money. So there's that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then, and then Miranda, I don't know. She's all over the place, that Miranda
She
right
really
now.
is. She's not that solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can people, single and otherwise, challenge this belief, this, I'd say, somewhat oppressive belief? Maybe you could scratch the word somewhat, just say oppressive belief that
Right.
you need to have someone to really be a success or for true happiness.
I mean, I think the thing is to really see what works for you and what you really want and how you thrive. And I don't think we're meant to be necessarily alone. I don't think I had Lucas at the house today. He's like, "Do you like living alone?" I'm like, "No, I do not," because it's kind of,
Mhm.
I like having people around.
Mhm.
So I don't think we're meant necessarily to be alone, but there are more and more stories. I know girlfriends who have moved in with friends of theirs. So there are ways to do living with someone where you're not in a romantic relationship, or,
Mhm.
there's more of this push towards community living and cohabitation, like people really look working in communities together, which I think is how we're designed, because I think we're social animals, really. I don't think we're meant to be alone. I think we're meant to be in community when it comes
Mhm.
down,
Mhm.
whether it's, again, romantic partner or in a bigger community, who knows?
Yeah. And even if you like living alone, right? It's can be very nice to have
And
your
that's
own
fine.
space.
That's
Yeah.
okay. No,
But
this
to
is
have
not a
some,
judgmental zone.
right, but to have some connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Um, I wrote an article. I used to write an advice column, and I look back on it today. It was from 2013, but I still pretty much agreed with it. It was about someone wrote to me before Valentine's Day, like how hard that holiday is for him, with everything around him saying couples, couples, couples. And I said, I think it was, first of all, notice all these messages and how they might be eating away at you and telling you that you're less than, and you have to challenge them. Just like it would be a good idea to become aware of any other societal judgment that makes you feel or contributes to your feeling bad about yourself, because it can't make you feel bad about yourself, right? But you have to notice it and challenge it. Say, no, I'm not going to let that eat me up. I think that's a good start. Still,
Yeah.
yeah,
So would that be your bottom line, is for people who are feeling society pressure to feel coupled if they're not, to try and be more caring and loving for themselves and not be so judgmental of themselves.
yes. To
Takeaway.
explicitly, I'd say, notice there's that old, you know, notion that I've heard again and again. I'm not going to let it infect me. I'm not going to agree with it. I'm not going to let this judgment take over what I think about my own life. And coupled with that, no pun intended, because I use the word coupled. Sorry, it's a very cheesy comment. But going along with that, to figure out what you can do to have a really meaningful, fulfilling life on your own. If you
That
want to be
sounds
with someone, hope that you'll meet someone and do what you can to make that more likely, but not wait around for it. I
right.
once worked with someone. This was very sad to me. I'm keeping this very general, but they really, really had their whole life had wanted to go to Paris, right? It's a very beautiful city, has a reputation to be a very romantic city, as is shown in Sex and the City and 3 million other movies and TV shows. Anyhow, but they weren't going to go until they were partnered because they don't want to go alone. And I was thinking you might never get to Paris. And that seems kind of sad to go through this whole life if your dream is to go to Paris, not to go.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth thinking, what do I want to do? Accepting that this is the reality of my life right now and embracing it and making the most of every day that I have. Not waiting for
I think
hypothetical.
that sounds like a great takeaway.
Yeah.
Shall we end it here?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Another
Okay, I'll look forward to our
lively
next talk.
discussion. Stay on after. I'm going to stop the recording, but stay on after.
Okay.
So
Bye, everyone.
thank you for joining us for our newest edition of Lisa and Michael Talk About Interesting Things, or things that interest us.
Yes.
Have a great day.
Shalom.